Welcome to Daily Plunge. We are in the book of Ezra, chapter 2, starting at verse 68, going through chapter 3, verse 13. Now, most of chapter 2 is a roster, a membership roster of everyone that is going with Zerubbabel back from Babylon back to Jerusalem. And, one of the things it says to us, picking up at verse 62, that some folks, as they looked at their lineage, they were not part of the priestly family, so they were not, they were excluded because they had not been people who were set aside for that. Interesting concept there. We're going to move on. There's 43,000 of these people, and there is money that has been given both by the royal treasury, but also there are donations from Jews in Babylon for the rebuilding of the temple. And they get there, and the first thing that people have to do is settle down themselves so that they can do this work. But in the 7th month, which is a month of great celebration in the Jewish faith, there's a number of there's the Passover, there's the Festival of Booths, so there's this time of worship. And what's interesting is that before the work begins, worship is first. And, as God's people, so often we try to work out of our own strength, but really we should be working out of our worship life. Now, it says they assembled as one people in verse 1. And they arrive in Jerusalem, as it says later in the chapter, that they arrived at the house of God. But there is no temple there. There is no house of God. But still they are gathering together, and they're being led by Zerubbabel, who is not a priest, but he is of the Davidic line. He is the grandson of the last king that was imprisoned. Now his father's alive, but his father decided to stay in Babylon. So this task falls to the grandson. And he's a leader, and he's leading them, but he's struggling. And one of the first things they do in verse 3 is there's an altar that's there at the spot, but it is a false altar. It is an altar that it's been used to worship the Lord God, but it's also been used to worship other gods. And so it is torn down so that there can be some purity about their worship. And that's a challenge for each of us. When we head into the sanctuary, are we tearing down the false idols in our own hearts so that there can be true worship of the Lord God? Now, you think about how they celebrate the Festival of Booths. What's the Festival of Booths about? About how the people were out in the wilderness and God provided them for them. And they are in a new wilderness, even though it's in Jerusalem. This place there's a lot of ruins, and this is a wilderness kind of experience, and they're relying upon God. The work begins, as it says in verse 6, and they pay the laborers for the work. And then we get down to, as they're putting things together, various people are in on supervising the work. Verse 10, the builders laid the foundation. And with that, as the space is dedicated to God, I want to remind us that how are we dedicating the space of our lives to God? How is our lives a temple to the Lord? While they're talking about a physical temple, what about our spiritual temple in our own lives? How is our church a temple to the Lord? And it says the old people wept because they remembered the old building, and they're having a hard time getting past what used to be and to engage in this new beginning that God has done. Thanks, friends. Have a blessed day.